Imagine if around 3,000 people paying a tax meant 700 million others were lifted out of poverty. Well, that's what a new report is suggesting could happen if every country adopted a billionaire tax. Let's talk about it. According to Forbes' 2024 annual rich list, there are 2,781 billionaires in the world, at least that we know of. The 1% are literally less than 1% of the planet's entire population. They're more like 0.00003%. 4 zeros, is that right? Did I say enough zeros? Together, they're worth more than $21.4 trillion, up $3 trillion from last year. For the average person, these numbers are just that, numbers. It can be hard to conceptualize just how much money that is and what it can do not only for one person, but an entire country. And that's why a group of world-leading economists believe if countries came together to make the world's richest people pay their fair share, the impact on the global economy would be massive. Let's explore the idea. The report comes from the European Union Tax Observatory, which researches the effectiveness of different tax systems with a specific focus on tax evasion and fraud. It found that contemporary tax systems fail to tax the ultra-high net worth individuals effectively. In other words, if we tax all rich people the same, we're letting the mega rich, the billionaires, off the hook. It argues that a progressive tax system like the one we have here in Australia, where you're taxed different amounts based on your income, is integral to upholding democracy. And that's because taxes are how governments fund things like education, healthcare, and public infrastructure. This group of experts created a blueprint on what a billionaire tax could actually look like. It proposed individuals with a net worth of more than $1 billion pay a mandatory minimum amount of tax annually. That would be equal to around 2% of their wealth. For context, right now they're paying equivalent to 0.3%. The report predicts that if we did this, this would result in an extra $200 billion into the global economy. Enough money to end world poverty. But how realistic is that? Now, we know that tax systems work in different ways for every country, and asking countries to revamp tax rules, some of which have been established for centuries, is no small ask. But technically, something like this has been done before. In 2021, more than 130 countries, including Australia, came together to introduce a minimum 15% tax rule on big multinational companies. The shared goal was to limit corporations from being able to create tax havens, which are when companies stash away profits in countries where they pay little to no tax. So far, around 37 countries have implemented or begun the process to implement the rule into their national laws. Basically, the report argues that in the digital world we live in, and thanks to globalization, it would be easier than ever to implement the billionaire tax. So if the plan is possible, and economists think it would do wonders for the international community, what's the problem? Okay, so it may sound utopian, which the authors have acknowledged, and they're also self-aware enough to point out some of the potential issues. One being that there could be potential economic costs, such as reduced incentives to work or accumulate wealth. They're basically asking if that would leave any incentive for people to work hard enough to make money. They also say that that consequence is unlikely to be significant. Let me tell you about what one of the richest men in the world thinks, Elon Musk. Firstly, he has said that he believes tax avoidance schemes should be illegal, but he does agree wealth taxes on billionaires would deteriorate productivity, or in some cases completely prevent companies from being able to get up off the ground without large amounts of money. In 2022, he said in his experience, SpaceX and Tesla probably would have died since both narrowly escaped bankruptcy in 2008. One thing to clarify is that this was in response to a proposed wealth tax, but it does speak to a similar idea. So what do you think? Would you want to see the rich taxed more, or do you think this kind of Robin Hood economics is unrealistic?